This picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which, under no circumstances, should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset.
So I'm going to be reading the book, The 5 Negro Presidents by J.A. Rogers. Now we know we've been lied to on a magnitude about history, historical sites, events. So is it too far-fetched to believe that a lot of the presidents that we thought were so-called Caucasian were actually mulatto or Negro? It's not hard to believe. I mean, once you tell a lie, it spreads around the world, right? Well, I'm going to start off with this book, page 1. In 1963, when Attorney General Kennedy and Senator Javits said there might be a Negro president in the next 30 or 40 years, in fact, most outspoken, the big magazines replied there was already one, and in its January-February 1964 issue, had article, America's First Negro President. It named Warden G. Harding as the one and had affidavits from elderly whites who knew the Harding family. But before Harding, 3 other presidents had been loudly proclaimed by white people as being of Negro ancestry: Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and Abraham Lincoln. The portraits of none of the above mentioned show the slightest degree of Negro strand, but that is certainly not proof. Even before the Revolution, many of Negro ancestry had become so white that whites who had been kidnapped and sold as Negroes could not prove that they were really white. The more so that some of them were darker than the bleached Negroes. Children were especially victims. As late as 1858, white orphan asylums sold their children at public auctions, and a picture of the time shows a white child being tanned to sell him into slavery in the South. Harper's Weekly, January 30th, 1864, has pictures of emancipated whites. The most famous case of the times was that of Salome Muller, a white German girl who was sold as a Negro slave. Her relatives bought suit, but the Supreme Court of Louisiana held she was a Negro. It wasn't until her birth certificate was dug up in Germany that her real race was discovered. In fact, Salome, who had been married to a Negro, believed herself to be one also. What writers of the time said of this is given in my Sex and Race, Volume 2, in the chapter, White People Sold as Negro Slaves. Even some aristocrats were of Negro ancestry. George Washington tells of Colonel Gatsby Coke, Virginia senator whose Negroid features made him hurry away nervously from Washington's home when he saw there an old Negro to whom he bore a striking resemblance. Therefore, when the political opponents of a presidential candidate said he was a Negro, many accepted it without question. It is usual for white writers to condemn offhand the statement that any president could possibly have any degree of Negro strand whatsoever, but it is not possible without minute tracing an ancestry to find whether one is pure white. Here's the case of one who started as a Negro, became white, and then voluntarily became a Negro again. He is T. John McKee, whose case attracted national attention and whose picture appeared on the front page of the New York Daily News, February 20th, 1948. McKee, grandson of a Negro millionaire of that name, had crossed the color line and gone to Yale and studied law. He lived for 45 years as a white man and had been a successful Wall Street lawyer, said the news. He had also married a white woman and had children by her. Then in 1948, he saw an ad issued by Orphan Society of Philadelphia for any living grandsons of McKee. The latter, in his will, had left $800,000 to found a military school for white and Negro orphans, with the provision that if this was not done, the money with interest should go to his last living grandson. This attorney McKee discovered was no other than himself, and he promptly became a Negro again to tune the $1,240,000 with interest on the original sum. Here's another case, this time from English royalty. David Michael, Marquis of Milford Haven, cousin of Queen of England, has some Negro strand, but possibly does not show it. On the paternal side, he is descendant from Queen Victoria. So Queen Victoria. The Catholic Queen Victoria was the daughter of Edward, Duke of Kent, and Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. Her father was the fourth son of King George III and his Moorish Negro consort wife, Sophia Charlotte. She was not the first Queen of Britain. When Victoria was baptized at Kensington Palace, much suspension and family friction arose concerning the possibility of her becoming the next ruler of Great Britain. Her uncles never thought well of her, whereby to entertain the idea that she may become the nation's next ruler was unacceptable. However, history has its fate, whereupon June 20th, 1837 AD, she was coronated as queen at the age of 18 and ruled Great Britain for 64 years. The queen, like her kin processors, bitterly opposed those who harassed her beloved grandmother because of her African blood. On the maternal, from Pushkin, Russia, greatest poet. Pushkin, in turn, is descendant from Abram Petrovich Hannibal, an unmixed Sudanese Negro who had been adopted by Peter the Great of Russia, and of whom Pushkin wrote in his Negro of Peter the Great. Hannibal's descendants married also into German, Russian, Dutch, and other royal families. David Michael's mother was Nadja, daughter of Grand Duke Michael of Russia. In some southern states, this member of English royalty would be a Negro. Virginia law provides that if any Negro ancestry is ascertainable, one is a Negro. If this had been proved of Thomas Jefferson also, he would have been one. When the descendant of Victoria and of Pushkin married, the Hearst newspaper had a feature on it saying that a coal-black baby might be yet born in the English royal family. This was based on the belief that if either couple has the slightest degree of Negro strand, a coal-black child might be born. Therefore, if Negro strand can be found in European royalty, which is so exclusive, why not in the American colonies where there was so much intermixing? Winston Churchill's grandmother was 1/4 American Indian, which William Joyce rightly or wrongly claims wasn't Indian but Negro. That, therefore, these American presidents might have some Negro strands is possible. Did some persons who knew the intimate details of their ancestry tell of them? There are very many instances of whites being exposed as Negroes. Interracial intercourse was very common then. George Washington had a Negro son and Jefferson mulatto daughters. Negro males were also named as co-respondents in white divorce cases, as Helen Collateral tells in her judicial cases concerning American slavery and the Negro. Mixed marriages were also illegal in several southern states, including Virginia and Mississippi. In Tennessee, mixed couples had to pay a tax. Thomas Jefferson. The chief attack on Jefferson was in the Johnny Cake papers. In a general denunciation of him, it said, Tom Jefferson, son of a half-breed Indian squaw, served by a Virginia mulatto father. It also called him a half-nigger. Opposition papers took it up. It is difficult to find matter with specific details of the assertion now. Andrew Jackson, father and mother came from Ireland and were wretchedly poor. The Virginia Magazine of History, volume 29, page 191, says that Jackson was the son of a white woman who had intermarried with a Negro and that his eldest brother had been sold as a slave in Carolina. What gave an air of truth to this was the elder Jackson died before Andrew was born. His widow went to live on the Crawford farm where there were Negro slaves and that one of these was Andrew's father's. It was stressed that Andrew was conceived after the death of his supposed father, whose name he bore. Other mention can be found in David C. Doyle's Ordeal of the Presidency, page 127, 1960. Jacobson D. Affairs of Dame Rumor, page 190, 1943.
What I'm saying is, it's not a coincidence that a movie about niggas taking over the world comes out the day before the most powerful black man on earth is assassinated. It's not a coincidence. It's not.
You actually believe that? Okay, you know what? I will give it to you. There are some subliminal messages in that movie.
Yes, there are.
But you know what? It's just a movie.
It's
just a movie.
It's never just a movie.
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was said to be the legitimate son of a Negro by Nancy Hanks. In his campaign for the presidency, he was often referred to as a Negro by his opponents. He was even depicted as a Negro. He was called Abraham Africanus I. What gave strength to this was that his hair was more Negroid than Caucasian. So was his color. Of his father, he said, his face was round, his complexion swarthy. His face was round, his complexion swarthy. So we gotta ask ourselves, is Obama the so-called first black African-American president? No. First of all, he's of mixed origin, mulatto, which means he came from a Kenya father and a Caucasian mother. So he's of mixed origin. And then we gotta look at Abraham Lincoln, same thing. His father was a Negro, Nancy Hanks, and his mother was a Caucasian, and he was swarthy, which means dark skin, hair black, and coarse, eyes brown. Of himself, of dark complexion, with coarse black hair and dark eyes. Herdon, his closet friend and law partner, said he had very dark skin. His confidential servant, William Slade, an ex-slave and a Negro, was much fairer and had straight hair. Slade looked like a white man. Herdon said there was something about his Lincoln's origin he never cared to dwell on. Other writers agree with him. Coleman says, all we know about President Lincoln's percentage in birth under his own hand are two brief records, one an entry in the Bible in his own handwriting, and that he was born on February 12, 1809, and the other a brief autobiography which he gave Mr. Jesse R. Fell in December 1859 for a campaign sketch. Lincoln had a secret preying on his mind. Was it his race? His enemies harped on it. Herdon says of it, Lincoln often thought of committing suicide. Why? Did the knowledge of his mother's origin or his own press the thought of suicide upon him? Jefferson mentions a catechism by a Western author adducing evidence that Lincoln was of Negro ancestry. He also mentions another catechism by Chauncey Burr, who said it would not rebound to Lincoln's honor to have it proved that he was part Negro. For then, on the ground of a natural sympathy with his own race, we might find excuses for facts which we could never pardon a white man. Coleman, W.M., The Evidence that Abraham Lincoln was not born in lawful wedlock, 1899. Beveridge, A.J., Abraham Lincoln, Volume 1, page 4, 1928. It seems clear that those whites who said Lincoln was a Negro are right. Vice President Hamlin. Even more than Lincoln was his Vice President Hannibal Hamlin, said to be a Negro. While United States Senator from Maine, he was often attacked from the floor because of his dark skin. To one opponent, he replied, I take my color from nature. You get yours from the brandy bottle, which is more honorable. He was a special target for the South during the 1860 campaign, the more so as he was more outspoken against slavery than Lincoln. Editorials thundered against him and the dire effects of electing a free Negro to the vice presidency. R.B. Rent, succession leader of the Charleston, South Carolina Mercury, July 9, 1860, said Hamlin is what we call a mulatto. He has black blood in him. The Northern people elected that man in consequences of his peculiarity. The design to place over the South a man who has Negro blood, he wrote Lincoln that he understood that Lincoln had a mulatto boy, and if you will let us know what you'll take for the boy, Hannibal, and your price is reasonable, we'll purchase him. The Chicago Democrat, June 4th, 1861, said, the constant theme in the South for the last 2 months has been the election of the abolitionist Lincoln and the free Negro Hamlin. As regards Hamlin's color, General Butler wrote the Secretary of War, Stanton, when he was gathering Negro troops for the Union Army, that he would have a regiment of mulattoes about the complexion of the Vice President Hamlin. While the South was making much against Lincoln and Hamlin, one of the South's generals, James B. Floyd, was being called a Negro in the North. Floyd had been a governor of Virginia, candidate for the presidency of the United States, and a former Secretary of War. A United States publication, Rebellion Record, Volume 3, page 47, 1862, has the following story about Floyd from the Springfield, Illinois Republican. A few years ago, a gentleman residing in Richmond, Virginia, gave a large dinner to some distinguished men, among whom was Floyd, then a rising man, but whose personal experience indicated neither mental or physical superiority, he being a pursy dark complexion, I repeat, dark complexion man with crispy hair. Among guests were two Indian chiefs, magnificent specimens of their race. Floyd, thinking to compliment them and make them at their ease, told them in a condescending manner that he could boast of Indian blood, being descended from Pocahontas. One of the chiefs drawing himself up majestically and disdainfully, and with a look of contempt on his noble countenance, said in broken English, no, nigger. The confusion and dismay of Floyd was complete, and it required all the boast politeness of Richmond to keep the other guests from laughing aloud. Mention of a Negro strand in Lincoln was revived most unexpectedly in 1940 when RKO, for the world premiere of the motion picture Abe Lincoln in Illinois, offered a prize for the American who most resembled Lincoln. The winner was Thomas Bomar, a lawyer and president of the National Postal Alliance. When after submitting his picture he appeared in person, the judges were amazed. It was as Lincoln had come to life. But before the premiere, it was discovered that Bomar, whom to all appearances was white, was a Negro. He was given a prize and sat in front row the opening night, but nothing was said of that contest. The dailies were silent about the affair, but the Interstate Broadcasting Company of New York mentioned it January 27th, my birthday, while the Negro press gave it wide publicity. Friday, an outspoken white magazine, also gave it several pages with pictures. Under the heading, Lincoln Snubbed at Lincoln Movie Show, it tells how the prize was privately awarded to a Negro, the man who looked most like Lincoln. March 15, 1940. Also, Rogers, J.A. Sex and Race, Volume 2, page 379. Bomar's picture. And I'll do a part 2, the 5 Negro presidents, coming soon.